Hello everyone. So today we are here for a discussion on how to read a systematic review and meta-analysis. So I presume all the audience, all the participants who are here to watch this video must be aware about the general terms about research and how to conduct a research. As very well explained by the speaker who just spoke before me, that how to publish a research and how to work on it. Now we should be very well aware that how to read a research, because that is the very first step, that whenever you read a research, then you get an idea that yes, now I need to focus on this thing is already done, so why a research article is published, so that you can get to know that for this particular issue or this particular problem, this is the best possible solution, and the researchers have found that thing with the utmost evidence. Now, talking about a systematic review, what are the reasons we conduct a systematic review? So, systematic review is a process that how things go. It's a qualitative research. It's a sort of, if you take a pyramid of research, as per the Oxford Press, there is a pyramid of research in which systematic review and meta-analysis hold the highest peak of that thing. So that means the best possible evidence. So in research, we see what sort of evidence do we have with us. So the better the level of evidence, the better the research is, and the better the generalizability and applicability of the research. So if we have a systematic review in hand, so we are well acknowledge those results in our daily practice. So let's say if I want to elaborate that thing with a simple example, in physiotherapy, a patient came to me with knee pain, or being more specific, it's patellar bursitis, right? Pre-patellar bursitis, and now I have a number of treatments for that thing, be it your cold pack, be it your ultrasound, be your laser therapy, and many other things. But what will you apply? Like in your book, it is written you can apply ice pack, hot pack, cold pack, anything for that matter, whatsoever it is, as per the condition. But when it comes to a systematic review, so why we need to study a systematic review, why we need to read it? Because that gives you the evidence. So there are a number of researches that have been done. Some of them are published in high quality journals, some of them are published in low quality journals. Now with high quality and low quality, I mean that some of them might include some sort of bias, some of them might be having lesser number of participants, some of them might be having different protocols used, and some might be using ice pack, some might be doing it on something else, some might be doing that research with medicine, and the funding would have been done with the funding agency would have been the pharmaceutical company. So in that case, we have a bias that if I'm working for a pharmaceutical company, I'll be doing it for that person. I'll be saying that yes, that medicine is so effective, you should be using that thing in your clinical practice, because I am a bit biased about the results of that study owing to the funding I got from that agency. Okay, so taking these things into consideration, what we need to do is we need to evaluate each and every article, and for that thing, once the things are evaluated, so the systematic review process will give you the ultimate, the maximum possible evidence for those criterias. So in a systematic review, we take a number of research articles and we analyze them qualitatively, that how is the quality of the research, how many number of participants they included, how many, the size of the study, the duration of the study, and the follow-up time. So based on these research objectives and criterias, we carry out a systematic review, and then we can apply the results of a systematic review on a larger population, because we have, let's say, systematic review contains 10, 20, 30 articles, and we analyze all of them and we reach the crux of those things. So that means we can generalize that thing to that population on which it was conducted. So although I don't really like to go out of the frame, but for this thing, for making you comprehensively understand this thing properly, I need to go on the laptop screen. I'll be showing you everything, how to read a systematic review and meta-analysis. And on part of the meta-analysis, how it is different from a systematic review. So coming to the meta-analysis thing, it is a objective or the outcome you received out of the systematic review. So the systematic process of conducting and analyzing the individual studies and reaching a result, up to that part it is systematic review, and quantifying that result and reaching an outcome is called a meta-analysis. Now what all you need to read, let's move on to that.
Well, starting with original paper, systematic review with meta-analysis, how to read it. So, coming to the article, for making you easily comprehend what exactly an article is and how to read it, we actually need an article. So, I have downloaded this open access free article from the Journal of Athletic Training, and so this is the very first step. So, in this article, I have 14 pages, right, from here to here. Okay, these 14 pages, first and foremost, you will be looking for which journal was this article published in. So for this thing, I'll be picking up this, and yeah, so I'll be going here and I'll be looking at this. So this is the Journal of Athletic Training. Journal of Athletic Training is a journal of high repute. So it is mentioned that Journal of Athletic Training, along with it is mentioned 2020. That means this article was published quite recently in 2020, and 501 to 514, that means page number 501 to page number 514 of the Journal of Athletic Training of the 5th version. So let me make it a bit tidy. Yeah, so here is the 5th version of the 5th, every journal has some issues means the number of prints it will be distributing every month, every 2 months. So a journal might be monthly, bi-monthly, quarterly or annually. So this journal, this issue was published in the 5th month and on page number 501 to 514. Now in the second line comes the DOI. So this is a number that gives you information about where you can find this article. If you put this number, and you can directly access this article, and it is, the C says that it is a copyright by the National Athletic Trainers Association inclusive, and the NATA journals has NATA, that is the National Athletic Trainers Association, has a direct copyright of this article, and they can use it in whichever way they want, because once the author signs that agreement, then the authorship is distributed between the author of the content along with the journal. So this, now coming to the title of the systematic review. A systematic review and meta-analysis, whatsoever it is. So we have various type of research articles. We have randomized controlled trials, we have systematic reviews, we have meta-analysis, we have observational studies, literature reviews, narrative reviews, case reports, and many others. So systematic review with meta-analysis stands at the top of a triangle of research. So if we have a triangle of research and we divide it into various stages, so the top of the triangle would be the systematic review and meta-analysis. So it will attain a place at the top. So that is the main thing we need to take into consideration. So whensoever talking about systematic review, you should be looking at the journal title. So it says the effects of eccentric training on biceps femoris, architecture and strength. So they have systematically reviewed all the available literature on this particular topic. So any study having anything to do with eccentric training, anything to do with biceps femoris muscle, its architecture and its strength. So they will be analyzing all those studies. Now coming to the lower line, we have the name of the authors. So we have Remy Girard, Leo Gozon, Philip Declave and Joseph Van Kant. It's their degree, that's PT and physical therapist and PhD physical therapist. Now in front of these PT and PhD, you can see this star. So this star mark, you can just see this thing. So this star is something that is it denotes something. Any symbol in a research denotes a particular thing. So here you can see 2-3 things. One is this star and one is this plus sign. Now this star means, you can see the reference of the star here. It recommends that the Department of Physical Therapy Institute in Brussels, Belgium. That means Remy Girard is from Belgium. Then this plus sign here indicates, it redirects you here that Philip Declave is from Department of Rehabilitation Sciences and Physiotherapy from Belgium, right? So the address and the recognition of the and the affiliation, so from where these authors are affiliated, so it will be mentioned in the very second line of the systematic review or meta-analysis. After these two things end, then comes the abstract of any study. So in this systematic review, the abstract of systematic review contains the objective, that why this study was conducted, the data sources, from where did they attain the data, how was the search performed, how did the database was searched after. So we have various database for our physiotherapy thing, including PubMed, Pedro, Sinahal, Sports Discuss. Alongside we have many others including Medline, Google Scholar and so on. So PubMed, Pedro, Sinal, Sports Discuss, Medline, all these have a certain database. There is a proper guide how to use that database. So you need to put some terms in that. So like they use the combination of various terms. So they use the terms. They used eccentric loading. They used Nordic hamstrings, hamstring strength, fascicle length, muscle thickness and muscle architecture. That means these terms, like if on Google Scholar or PubMed, if you'll put any term like let's say eccentric loading, okay, so what will happen is it will show you let's say 5,000 articles of eccentric loading that include the term eccentric loading. So that way they use the combination of all these terms and they reach to a conclusion that these number of studies can be used in our study, in our systematic review. So how were the studies selected? It is mentioned here. Then after selecting the study, what they need to do is they need to extract the data out of them. So they are generally 2, 3, 4 or maybe can be 10 reviewers in a study, like here 1, 2, 3 and 4. So they have 4 reviewers. It can go up to anything. Reviewers are the person who do a systematic review. So what they did, they opened up the literature, they searched for it, then they saw the study design was the study that was included was at a randomized controlled trial, or was that an observational study, or what was it. Then they saw what were the patient characteristics, how was the type of patient, male, female, age, height, weight and so on. Then the inclusion and exclusion criteria. So we will be discussing about these things in detail in the upcoming pages of this systematic review. Then after selecting that particular data, after extracting the data, Now comes, we need to synthesize the data out of that thing. So we need to put the data in some statistical tool, we need to apply on it so that we can quantify the data. So let's say they took a number of studies and they quantified the data, they took out the mean difference in the studies and the how much confidence they have in the results. So they put a 95 confidence interval and they got some result. Okay, so it's just for sake of understanding, you should be comprehending what all they did. It's not like you should be get confused with what all I'm saying. As the thing will progress further, you'll get to know, and at the end they'll give a conclusion that in healthy adults an eccentric training program can produce architecture adaptations. So this systematic review suggests that eccentric program is a good training program for producing the architecture adaptations. So this is the best level of evidence you can get. So this result you can use in your daily practice. So you need not to study, you need not to read, let's say 20, 50, 100 articles to reach a conclusion. You can just come, just search for a systematic review. You can just see, okay, what all they did, what all was the conclusion of the study. Because if the study is good and it is published in a nice journal, we can presume, although research is not about presuming, as soon as the word presume comes into action, that means you are a bit biased. So we need not to be biased, but yes, we can come to a conclusion that because they said so and the data synthesized by them was correct, so the results can be applied to the general population which they worked upon. So on the basis of this result, if I had to find some good thing, some good training strategy for producing changes in the architecture of the biceps femoris, I would have read that article, this particular article, and then I would have got the idea that yes, if I do a eccentric strength training program for my biceps femoris, I will see architectural adaptations along with increase in the hamstring muscle strength. So that will be very easy for me to just read it and then apply the thing in my general population of patients and individuals I'm working with. Now the keywords are the words which increase the visibility of the article. So the eccentric strength training, Nordic hamstrings, fascicle length and architecture and all these words, if you will be searching anywhere on the internet, somewhere or the other, you will find this particular article. So these words increase your visibility on the database. Now coming to the key points, every systematic review is bound to have some key points, because every systematic review is written as per the PRISMA guidelines. PRISMA is a guideline that suggests that how to write a systematic review. It has a number of key points that should be kept in mind while writing a systematic review in order to produce the best possible evidence for the people who are reading it. So here the key points, they gave 3 key points, that this can be done, this can be of so much help and so and so. Then followed by that thing comes the introduction. So here down the track I can found this introduction, that hamstring strain injury is one of the most common injuries and so and so. We need not to read it thoroughly, because we just need to take an idea of what all will you see in a research article. So here down the track you can see that it is written 501, that means page number 501 of Journal of Athletic Training. As I told you in the very beginning, that the number of the page number will be marked in, see, here is 501 and here up on the first page it was written 501. So that means 501 is the starting page and 514 is the ending page. So now moving on to the next page of the thing, I take out this and next page. So second page suggests the search strategy used for writing out this particular research article. So here if we see the search strategy, this table, so why we are reading this systematic review? So that it should save our time. We should not have, we need not to go to many articles to find a result. But what we need to see in this article, we need to see the search strategy. Was the strategy properly used? So see here they used PubMed database, and they did this search strategy they used from 1 to 17. So first and foremost they just typed eccentric strength training in PubMed, and they found that 42 articles mention eccentric strength training title in their heading or in their content. Then second term they use eccentric loading, and they found it was 217 articles were there on PubMed. Likewise they used, let's say, biceps femoris, and they found that 3069 articles were there on PubMed. Then they went to the term using the term healthy. Now healthy is a generalized term, like a number of articles can have the term healthy included in it. So that is why the number of articles they found on PubMed was so big. See, 742 748, like 7,42,748 articles they found that contain the term healthy. And adult, you see, with the term adult they found 52,21,793 articles. That means, so as you search the database, the term decides what you are gonna get. So if it is a technical term like eccentric strength training or Nordic hamstring, the research will be limited. But if it is a generalized term like healthy and adult, the results will be numerous. So you, and then what they do is 14 or 15 and 14 and 13 and 16. So this or and these are called Boolean operations. So in PubMed it does not recognize only the general terms, but you need to use these Boolean operations for coming to a result. So 14 or 15, like 14 or 15, that means either healthy or adult. So healthy fetched you 7 lakh something results, adult fetched you 52 lakh something results. Now if you include either healthy or adult, like the article you are going to search for should include either the term healthy or the term adult. So they got 55 lakh articles. So that was what it was all about. And then so you combine the terms. So this is what we call search strategy, how they search the articles and then they reach to a conclusion. So in this one, if we see the search strategy, so it was a search strategy. I'll move up 1 or 2 page. Yeah, so here we come to the search strategy extension. So this is what we call this flow diagram. This is a flow chart for the study selection, how they chose the study. So first and foremost they identified, right? So here we have, yeah, this. So first and foremost what they did, they identified the study. They searched all the databases like Medline, Pedro, Sinal, SportsDiscus. On Medline they found 45 articles, on Pedro they found 14 articles, on Sinal they found 129 articles, and on SportsDiscus they found 63 articles. Now adding on all of these, they found that the total number of articles they identified were 251 after using all these search terms which we read just earlier. Now after reading the terms and identifying that there are 251 articles, now they saw that no, there are some articles that are being repeated. So there are some duplicate articles. So they removed the duplicate articles and they found out only 179 articles are there. Rest of them were the duplicates that made it 251. So after removing the duplicates, when it remained 179, now so studies are identified to be 179 relevant studies. Okay, now further going into the relevancy, we need to screen the records, we need to screen the studies for further filtering out the studies which we don't need for our systematic review. So after recording, after screening the records, after screening the studies we found, after out of those 179 studies, 156 were excluded and only 11 studies were kept with us to do the systematic review. And how come did that happen? See here what happened is they did a PII ORD, right? See, so they excluded the study based on the title and abstract evaluation. So here they read the title, they read the abstract. See, it's as simple as that. Like in the previous search strategy, we saw that healthy and the other term adult fetched you 52 lakh articles, and no one can read 52 lakh articles just for sake of finding the best suited article for yourself. So after applying the boolean operations, they reached 179 articles, but still it was a bit difficult to read all of them. So what they did, they read the titles of the articles, and they found out that the title and the abstract was they read that, and they found out that 156 articles were not of relevance to them, so they excluded those out of the study. Then when they were going through the other articles which they did not find through the search strategy, they found that there were 11 extra articles which were lying unidentified, so they also included that thing as well. So out of the 179 articles, they excluded 156 articles, and whatsoever was left, they added in it 11 articles, so totaling up to 34. So 34 articles were left with them, and out of those 34 articles, here in this one, they just read the title and the abstract, okay, and then finally they reached that 34 articles are of their use, they felt like. And when 34 articles were left, now it's easy for you to read 34 articles, that's quite easy. So what they did, now they read the full text, the complete articles, all the 34 articles, and they found that only 10 of them were eligible for the study, and 24 were excluded because they were not having the proper population, the gender, the intervention that was used. So that was different from what we needed, so we excluded that thing out of the order. And out of those 10 articles that were assessed for eligibility, that were found to be eligible to be included in the systematic review, what they did, they included only 9 for the meta-analysis and 1 article for the qualitative synthesis. So what does that mean? There are two terms here, is quantitative and is qualitative. So because these 9 articles had that much data, and they were so homogeneous, they were so nicely conducted in such a nice way, and they were in homogeneity with each other, that they were conducted all the way around alongside each other. And the meta-analysis means quantify, means numbering out them was done. But in the other way around, in the other one, qualitative one, means the quality, because the number was not that much of relevance in this one, so the qualitative synthesis was done because they were not able to do the quantitative one. So coming back, so we did this boolean operation, the search strategy, and now come the method. Because you did the introduction thing, you found out what has been done in the past, what all things are lacking, what all things are you gonna cover. Now here comes the method for this article. So whensoever they report the method, they first and foremost report how they searched the thing. So they report the search strategy. So in the search strategy, first and foremost thing that comes for systematic review and meta-analysis is the Prospero registration. So this number means a lot for reviewers who are doing research, because without this number your research is not of that much credibility. Followed by that thing, they search the PubMed, Pedro, Sinal and Sports Discus databases from inception to 2018. So till October 2018, whatsoever was published, whatsoever was there on these 4 databases, they included. And the search terms we already discussed, that they use these eccentric strength training, eccentric loading, Nordic hamstring and all of them. So they use a combination of these search terms. And then in the systematic review you can see very easily that they have mentioned everything. Like, see here you can see that table 1 is explaining what all were the search terms and how they used them. So here the search terms, and they then the two of the writers, two of the researchers, did the study selection. So there were four of them, two of them did the study selection, and they made a criteria for inclusion and exclusion of the studies. So on this basis, when the inclusion and exclusion criteria is set for the studies and everything is done, they extracted the data and analysis and synthesis of the data was done. So analysis of the data is normally done in review manager software, although there are many others, but generally we do in review manager, short form we use RevMan software. Okay, and for analyzing the data you need the baseline values, the mean values, and the SD values. So they generally calculate the standardized mean difference in those studies. Now on part of what they do with those datas, and then they report the level of evidence and the methodological quality of the research. So here you can see that they very rightly mentioned that the quality of research can either be high, low, or unclear. So for marking them as high, low, or unclear, they had to do this. So this is what we call the risk of bias assessment with percentage. So in this particular figure you can see that some of them are black colored markings, some of them are having white and black, and some of them are having this gray, black, and white. So what does that mean? So actually these are the criterias that was the study randomized properly, was the randomized sequence generated, was it the allocation that was done of the groups, group A, group B, group C, whatsoever it is, was that concealed or not? Then were the groups similar at the baseline, and were the baseline characteristics of the group similar, and all these things. So there are various criterias. If these criterias are fulfilled properly, so there is a low risk of bias. Like in the first one you can see that it is completely black, that indicates a low risk of bias. That means there was a randomized sequence was generated properly for this data in those included studies. So that means there is a low risk of bias. But in the last one, other risk of bias, you can see it is white. White means unclear risk. We are not aware of the risk. It might be biased or not. So why do we need to see the bias in a study? Because as I told you, like some of the studies are done for pharmaceutical companies, and they generally pay you for that thing. So funding is done by the pharma company. So it might happen that because you are taking funding from the pharmaceutical company, what you will do is you will just report the results in favor of those people, because you want more funding in the future as well. So that might lead to bias in the publication and bias in the results, and you will not understand that thing right now when you are doing the research. But what will happen is, if that thing by chance gets published and someone else, like you publish the study and I was reading that your study, so what I'll reach to a conclusion that the study I read said that this particular treatment is good in this condition. So I'll do that treatment in that particular condition, and the result you suggested would not be correct, because like today in this coronavirus situation, pandemic situation, every other brand is coming out with their medicines, that our medicine is effective, other one is saying that mine is effective. So how did they conclude that? They did a lot of study as they claim, and then they reached a conclusion. So but we need to assess the bias. Were they biased about their results or not? So here is the risk of bias summary. So this is how you conduct the risk of bias summary. So all those criteria which we saw in the last figure, those black, white, and gray lines, they have been enumerated as in the tabular form here. So for all these studies that they have included, these 9 studies, okay, 9 or 10 whatsoever it is, these 10 studies, they did a risk of bias assessment and summarized the biasness in these studies, that whether the studies are biased or not. So some of them are having low bias, some of them are having unclear bias, and some of them are having high bias. Now this, like Sabellian et al. In 2014 conducted some research, and it was found that the baseline characteristics have a high bias. That means the baseline characteristics might not be similar for the included participants. So let's say if you are comparing two people and you are comparing the strength. So one is a lean and thin guy and the other one is a bulky, muscular, gym going person. So would you be able to compare the results after giving them a strength training program? Like let's say I am able to lift 10 kgs and you are able to lift 15 kgs. So you are stronger than me on the very initial point of study. And afterwards, after 10 days of training, you will say that I reached 25 and I would be reaching only 15. So you would say you are weak. So the result of the study will indicate that this particular training is good for these people. But you can't generalize, because that thing did not help me, because me and you were not similar at baseline. So this baseline criteria should be matched. So in this case, the baseline criteria was not good for Sabellian et al., and hence there was a high risk of bias in similar baseline characteristics. Then you have some outcome measures. So outcome measures are the ones which you need to use on the basis of what you will be deciding what all outcomes are you gonna assess in your meta-analysis. So you, like, for what are you gonna do the analysis? What are you analyzing in your results? So this is what we call the outcome measures. So like in this study, so you were analyzing the eccentric strength, then they were analyzing the architecture changes. Along with that thing, they were seeing the flexor strength at different angles with their exercise machine. Now, here are the participant characteristics. So you should be able to define any systematic review with the tables and figures they have given. So in this participant characteristic table, the very first one shows the studies that have been conducted. So the name of the authors have been mentioned. Now here, starting from here to here, okay, you have the name of the authors. Along with that, how many groups did they include in their study? Like let's say the first one included control group, intervention group, and intervention. So there were 2 intervention groups, 2 different training were done, and there was 1 control group. Likewise, in the second one, it was only a control group and an intervention group, and so on. So then they mentioned the number of participants. So they were more or less similar. In some of them it was 10, 10, 10, 15, 20, 12, and then 60, 10, 14. So they are different. In every study they have different number of participants. Then coming to the mean age. So here the age is mentioned. You can see 21.3 plus minus 3.7. So 21.3 means if I have a group, they included 10 in the control group, 10 in the intervention group. Now in those groups, they let's say in the very first control group, there were 10 participants. One was 22 years, one was 20 years, one was 19, other one was 23 years. So we took out a mean of all those and we just wrote that it is 21.3. The mean is 21.3 for all of them. And if you plus or add 3.7 in it, so you will reach almost around 25. And if you subtract 3.7 out of it, you will reach somewhere around 18 or 17. Okay. So ranging from the age 17 to the age 25, you have the participants in this study. Likewise, so this is what we call the 21 plus minus 3.7. And then the activity level. Were they recreationally active? were they professional players? So see, you can see the difference. So if you are going to read this particular article by Iga et al, you will see that they included professional male soccer players. And meanwhile, I'll be reading the article by Borne et al, and I'll be reading, okay, they included recreationally active men. Now, can we generalize this particular study's result for recreational people, or can we generalize the results of the recreational active men for professional male soccer players? No. So that is why we are doing this systematic review, in order to analyze that what all can we do for these people, how can we quantitatively come to a conclusion that after looking at all the data we have in hand, that what all can be done for these people, right? Now the next one I have is, so here is this one. Generally they have this long paper, because you can't draw such a big table on portrait mode. So in this one they generally describe in systematic review, what is done is, all the studies they have included for systematic review and meta-analysis, they describe in a particular table. So they include the study name, okay, so they included the study name here. The very first one shows the study name and the year it was done. Let's say the study was done by Borne et al, Delahunt et al. Then the type of exercise, which type of exercise did they use in their study? So was it hip extension exercise or NHE, or what it is? NHE means Nordic hamstring exercises, right? Then coming to the materials they used in their studies, so it may be different. So the first author used padded board with ankle braces, with weight plates and all. Second author used hip extension machines. So see the variability in the studies, they use different strategies, different materials, and the progression also was different. See, in the very first study it was 2.5 kg load was increased every week for 10 weeks, whereas in the other study every week they used to increase 60 to 70% weight of one RM, one repetition maximum. So see the variability in the studies. Likewise in all of them they are quite variable. So you need to write in the systematic review, so they will be written properly so that you can directly get a crux of what has been done. So let's say if you want to see that what did Borne et al did in 2017, you will be directly coming to this systematic review, opening up this table, and you will see that Borne et al in 2017 did something with NHE, Nordic hamstring exercise, and he used padded board, ankle braces and this material, and he progressed every week for 10 weeks with 2.5 kg load, and the warm up was not specified in this particular study, and the procedure they carried out was 2 to 6 sets of 5 to 10 repetitions, 3 minutes rest between the sets. So this strategy you can directly use, because it will mention in the conclusion of this study that was this study effective, was the result effective for this study. So you can directly, if it is effective, you can use this protocol for your patients directly without even thinking, okay. And last but not the least, in a systematic review, a very important thing is this forest plot, right? We call it, see, this is the forest plot. So why do we plot this forest plot? Why do we need this forest plot? So in this forest plot you can see, I need my marker here, yes, I need a thin one, and yes. So in the forest plot what happens is, if we so the studies from 1 to 10, okay, then what all subgroups they had in them. So this particular figure is, it's called the forest plot. In this plot you have the control group on the left side and the strength training group on the right side, because the studies you included although they are variable, they are different, but at the end they are having something or the other related to either the training group or the control group, right? So the training group is favoring the eccentric and the other one is favoring the control exercise intervention. Now these lines, what does these line mean? So in these lines, so you see the A1, A, this small line, right? I marked it here. B, again this small line. C, again a small line. D1 is a bigger line. Okay, so this line, what does it indicate? So if you see here in this study, if you come to this thing, the very first study says 1.58, 1.47 and 1.69. What are these values? 1.58 is the point estimate. That means that when the meta-analysis was done for this study, it was found out that the result of this study lies somewhere at around 1.58 mean difference. That the mean of the control group and the eccentric group lie somewhere at 1.58. That means the difference of the two will be around 1.58. So 1.58 is the mean difference along with 95% confidence interval. So, and what are these 1.47 and 1.69? So this is what we need to mark here in this line. So you can see that was 1.58. So if you mark a straight line from here to here, it is something around 1.58, right? So this is the point difference. The center square, this square, small square, okay, my drawing is very bad, yeah, this square, so it indicates that this is the 1.58 point. And what are the 1.47 and 1.69 then? This particular 1.47, 1.69. So the starting point of this line A here is the mid one. Here is the starting. Let me zoom it out, and yeah, this one is starting, this one is the ending here. Okay, so the starting point is 1.47 and the ending point is 1.69. So you can see 1.69. So for study A, the mean difference value here will be marked here in this graph. Okay, likewise for all the studies you have here, like let's say we take an example, another example, so you can easily comprehend this. We have the study D by Ribeiro Alvarez, and we found out the mean difference to be 1.63 and in bracket 1.07 and 2.19. So 1.63 is the middle square. So in D you have the middle square as 1.63, yeah, lying somewhere at 1.63. Then you have the two sides 1.07 and 2.19. So this one lies at around 1.07, this one at 2.09. okay, so likewise for every study you have these plots, forest plot, and then comes the final thing. Final thing means the last total. Total means you just did the overall estimate of this study and you found out that this last was 1.97, 1.48, 2.46. The total overall effect of the study of the systematic review came out to be 1.97. So how will they mark the total outcome? So it is this triangle, okay, this diamond shape, actually not triangle, this diamond shape. So the center of this diamond from here to here, okay, this is the point estimate. Point estimate means the value, this value 1.97. So you can see it is somewhere around 1.97 here. Okay, this line is 1.97. Now the two other values are there, 1.48 and 2.46. So if you see here, so it's 1.48 and 2.46. Okay, so like this we can see that in this study the triangle, that is the overall effect, came out towards the side of the strength training group. So we can generalize, we can come to the conclusion that yes, strength training group is effective, strength training exercise, eccentric exercise are effective for producing changes in the architecture of the hamstring musculature and the fascicle length of the same. And one more thing is left in this one is this last line. So that overall effect, so test for overall effect. What was the overall effect? The triangle was the overall effect. Here is the triangle and it was the overall effect of the study. So in the overall effect you found out that p value was lesser than 0.001. That means p less than 0.05 is a significant value. Now here we have p less than 0.001, that means highly significant. And at the same time the heterogeneity means how different are these studies. Are the studies different or same? So the for checking the difference or variability in the studies, we just check the I square value and p value. So if p is lesser than 0.05 in this one, that means there is the difference is not there, it is statistically significant difference. Okay, now it is lesser than 0.05, that means the difference is statistically significant in the studies. So the studies are significantly different from each other and that we don't want to happen. And the I square value, if it is more than 50%, then also it indicates a lot of heterogeneity. Heterogeneity poses a lot of issue while doing a meta-analysis, because you never know, like the study you are doing, the results you are getting are of no use or of no value, because the study you used was so much different at the initial thing. The criteria they used, the participants they included were all different from the other ones. Likewise here you have another chart, another triangle, another everything, this diamond shaped values. Now you know very well what are these lines and what are these diamonds. One thing you are left with is that what are these squares, this square. Okay, this one, in the middle of every line you have a square. Some of the squares are small, other ones are large. So what does the square indicate? So here in the table you have something called weight of the study. This study is 14%, this 13, 12, 14, 15, 14, 14, and total came out to be 100. So weight of the study means how much effect did that study had on the overall meta-analytical result. So like in this meta-analysis, this 15% one was the most, the one that was influencing the meta-analysis the most. So if we see the triangle of E, so the square of E means here, this one, you will find out that it is bigger than any other of them. Okay, all of them are a bit smaller than this square, and this indicates the weight of the study. The more the weight, so the more the weight of the study, this one, the more is the size of this square in these lines. So yeah, this was all about the forest plot, and then you come to the conclusion of the study. You read that what all results did you find in the study and what all conclusion did you reach. And here, like see the example I was telling you, the size of the square, you can see that D square is larger than the C one and B is the smallest one, and you can directly correlate it with the values. See, the D value indicates 22.5, so the highest of the 5 values in the weight, so that means D square will be the biggest. So and this result is towards the right, that means towards the eccentric strength training group, because F, that is the diamond, is towards the right, so that indicates a significant result towards the eccentric strength training group. Okay, and then coming to the these tables and all are the same as I told you. Then concluding the systematic review, they conclude it on the basis of the results whatsoever they get in the results. So this systematic review and meta-analysis offered evidence that eccentric strength training produced architectural adaptation in the biceps femoris muscle. Okay, so this was what they concluded. So this way you can generalize the thing to the future population which you are dealing with, and you can generalize the results of this study to other population as well. Then you see the reference list. Yes, this is very important. Now in the content you see the reference one, you see this value. Yeah, here it is, here it is, here it is. So if you need to see, yeah, where did the author got this line, this particular thing, because you can't, you are not writing something which you feel. It is something which have been proven with research. So this line that has been written, like, however, increase in muscle thickness and pennation angle may also counter the tendency of fascicle length to increase and thereby decrease the shortening capacity of muscle. So this line has been taken, this idea has been taken from article number 43 and 70. So you can refer to the text reference section. In the last you have the reference section. So in this reference section you will go to article number 70 and here you go. So that means that line was, that phrase or that idea was taken from this particular study that was conducted in 1985. So this way you can see what all things are included in the study, and alongside you need to see the referencing style as well. So let's say in this study, what was the referencing style? So as they used these numbers and 71, 43, 70 instead of the name of the authors in front of the text, and the referencing style here you can see that, yeah, the name of the author, all four authors are named, along with the title is named properly, completely, but the title of the journal, the Journal of Orthopedic Physical Therapy Practice, is written in italics. So this particular reference style is the American Medical Association style. So this way we can see the referencing style, because for every other study or research article or journal you will be having a different referencing style. So for this one, the American Medical Association style of referencing was used, the Index Medical style. And last but not the least, you have the address of correspondence of the corresponding author in this particular study, who is Joachim Van Kant. So if you have any issues, any doubt, any confusion or any question about a particular systematic review, you can directly mail this individual, this author of the study, and he'll surely answer your questions. So this is what systematic review is all about. So this way you can easily read a systematic review and analyze it and you use the results in a proper constructive manner for your future practice. Thanks a lot. Stay connected. Take care.